business leaders face uncertainty and volatility. Non-humans are entering the workplace, memes control the stock market, and geopolitics is a business concern. Disruption isn't a future concept, it's here. I am Justin Brady, and using 7,000 predictions and 12 major workplace trends from SHRM, you and I will sit down with psychologists, CEOs, scientists, entrepreneurs, and analysts to make sense of it all. This show isn't about the future, it's about actions to take tomorrow. This is Tomorrowist. I'm Justin Brady, and one topic that is currently in the news is working moms. It's always in the news. I don't know why I say currently in the news. It's always in the news, working moms. And that's what we're going to talk about today. How do we balance that as leaders in organizations? And to do that, I'm joined with Paula Faris, the author of You Don't Have to Carry It All. Paula, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Justin. It's my pleasure and my honor to talk about this.
So you have some cool credentials. Let's go through those really quick. You're the founder of Carry Media. You're the host of the Paula Faris Show, award-winning journalist of Good Morning America, and The View. So busy career, high-profile career. Why the working mom issue particularly?
Yes. So I as a journalist covering some of the biggest headlines in the world, I did leave TV news in 2020, and I said, I wanted to really pursue the working mom and the marginalization of working moms, because I learned as a journalist, you're supposed to suss out inequities, right, Justin? And through a lot of my reporting and research, I realized, oh my gosh, why is there something called the mom penalty? Why are we penalized for becoming mothers, right? Why are we paid less? Why are we valued less? Why are we scrutinized more once we become mothers? And so I saw this marginalization of motherhood where we are scrutinized and diminished instead of celebrated. And I said, you know what? I want to do something about it. So that's why I formed Carry Media. I want to help carry working moms. They're carrying so much through motherhood. We provide load lessening content. And we really advocate for working moms. But I want to do something about it. I want to support working moms. I want to support families. I think our nation is only going to be as strong as the support that we lend to working moms and to families.
So why do you see this as a problem? And there's a deeper question here, but
Yes.
Let me back up a little bit. I think I live in a bubble because one of my business groups that I'm a part of, I think I want to say almost half are working moms that are primary breadwinners. That's probably not the best word to use, but primary.
I know it's an antiquated term, but we know it's still a term that we use.
My mother was what I call a domestic engineer. She raised us from home all the time. She was greatly respected and honored, at least in my circles. And so for those that don't really, they're like, okay, yeah, I get it that, working moms, that's really, really difficult. But when you say like being a mom limits you, they're not respected, they're disadvantaged. Can you lay that out for us, like what you're seeing, what that looks like?
Yeah, it's called the mom tax or the mom penalty. And it's a very real thing. Mothers are paid less once they become a mother. Even if there's an intimation that you want to have children, you will be scrutinized because you're all of a sudden, Justin, thought of as a risk and a liability. Oh, she's going to be counting Cheerios in the corner. She's not going to be as committed to the job. I mean, you look at all the research, mothers make 70 cents on the dollar compared to fathers. And I'm not hating on dads. Go get your money, right? But all of a sudden, we are paid less. We are passed over on promotions. We are not given that promotion because, once again, we're a risk and a liability, according to society. And we're just not valued as much anymore, where conversely, fathers enjoy something called the fatherhood bonus. And fathers are more likely to be hired if they're a father because they have to provide, and they're paid more because they're the perceived provider, where it's the exact opposite for mothers. And if you really look at all of the research, I think moms need a rebrand because there's the perception where we're a risk and a liability and counting Cheerios once we become mothers. And then there's the reality. And I write about it a lot in the book. I look at the science of what becoming a mother, whether the baby grew in your heart or your tummy, what that does to you. And motherhood is essentially a masterclass in leadership. Motherhood gives us increased empathy, increased efficiency. We become better leaders, better visionaries, better courage. I mean, you've heard the term, if you want to get shit done, you give it to a mom. And you know that that's true. We just get it done. We have become the ideal employee, and yet we've been miscast and misbranded as this liability. And the reason why I'm incredibly passionate about this is because the mother takes the brunt of it, right? And we often have to choose between kids and a career. And that's very much just an American issue. And other countries, developed countries around the world, women have no choice but to work. And they take a great amount of pride in working and helping to provide. But they also have on the back end an incredible amount of support from society, from culture, through the policies, even the attitudes. Here in America, I don't know if you're a parent or not, but it's very much this perception and this feeling and attitude of your kid, your problem. You figure it out. It's on you to raise a kid. In other countries, it's very much, I am my brother's keeper. I am going to be vested in these children because they are the next generation, even if it's not your own, because they are our greatest natural resource. They are the future of that of the country. So, look, moms take the brunt of it. Moms need a rebrand. I think moms are honestly the most ideal employee that you can find, but they have to be well supported. And we shouldn't have to choose between kids and career. That's an inequity, right? And it's not like that in other countries.
So, yeah, I mean, it's a good topic. Is the core issue time off? And when I say time off, I don't mean it's actually time off for a mom. As you know, it's not time off.
Yeah,
But having a child, just let's talk scientifically, is pretty traumatic for the body.
it
It's
is.
not a cakewalk. And so that requires you to shift focus to your child, which you should. I mean, which you should. So is it as simple as that, okay, the workforce is simply valuing time put in and years of experience, and that's why there's this mom gap, or does it go deeper than that?
It goes a lot deeper because, look, the mother becomes the default for everything. You think out of the gate, we have maternity leave, but we don't really like paternity leave is not talked about as much, Justin. And out of the gate, who does that fall on? The responsibilities of the home, of the child, of work, all fall on the mom. And that's why working moms, there have been studies that show working moms are working between home and work and all the responsibilities that they're carrying 98 hours a week. That is an inequity. That's it. That right there is a disparity that we need to call out. And I think partners and families are at their greatest when both the mother and the father are involved. You've seen the research about paternity leave and what that does to change the dynamic out of the gate. And I think if we want to do something incredible for gender equity, it's mandatory paternity leave because out of the gate,
Yeah.
it's no longer on just the mother to do everything. And then the dad goes back to work, right? My husband didn't take paternity leave ever. He was never offered it. I remember after the birth of our third child, he went back the next day and he was celebrated. Like, look at how committed he is to his job, which is great. But like, why is that all falling on the mother? Families are at their best when mothers and fathers are collectively raising the child together, that it's not just pawned off on the mom. And when you really want to, like, if we really want to nerd out, Justin, we can go back to the 1950s, and the 60s when we pushed men out of the home and we said, your only job is to provide. And if you can't, you're a failure. And we pushed women out of the workforce and we said, I mean, things were written about working moms. They have working women's disease. They are a menace to society if they had any ambitions outside of the home. And the reason why in the 50s you could get by with one income was because it was built on the backs of marginalized people. Blacks were forced out of the workforce. Women were essentially forced out of the workforce. Rape was still legal in marriage. It wasn't more moral. We've all seen Mad Men. We know men came home with lipstick on their collar, but what was the woman to do? She didn't have any financial autonomy. Teen pregnancies were at an all-time high. A third of the country was in poverty, yet we romanticized, let's go back to this time. It worked because it was built on the backs of marginalized people. That's not the case anymore. Most families need 2 or 3 incomes to survive. It's just the reality of the situation. And yet mothers take the brunt. You saw 4 times more women leave the workforce at the pandemic because than men. And that's because we make less because of the motherhood penalty. So it's going to continue to fall on the backs of mothers. And childcare remains the number one barrier to women in the workforce. Again, because we're making less. Who's going to end up staying home? And I know it might be different in your bubble, which I appreciate you calling it that, because I think if we really want to have thoughtful conversations, and I applaud you for that. We have to get outside of our own bubble. And just because it happens this way in your situation doesn't mean it's happening this way everywhere else. But the reality is mothers are taking the brunt of it and will continue to be marginalized if we're paid less. And yet 70% of mothers will be the primary breadwinner for their family at some point in their child's lives, 0 to 18. So if we continue to pay us less and value us less, cycles of poverty and debt will continue. So it's about equity. It's about paying us. It's about valuing us for what we bring to the table and not forcing me to choose between a career and my children. I'm always going to pick my kids, but why do I have that choice? And why isn't there support on the back end? Because if I don't have kids, guess what? We don't have a human race. If we don't have a human race, we don't have an economy. And that's why I think at the end of the day, it's not just this is not just the marginalization of mothers. This is our economy that's at stake. And that's why, like, I think this is an economic issue. We've lost, if we just subsidize childcare comparatively to other countries, Justin, we would add $1.7 trillion to our GDP. We lost over $150 billion in our economy due to the lack of accessible and affordable childcare. And again, that falls on the mother because it's her responsibility to raise the child, right? But again, families are at their best when partners are partnering together and carrying the load together, the mental load, the juggle. It's great for the relationship. It's better for the families.
I do agree that the you bring this up in the book, by the way, that, marriage should be a team sport.
It should.
I want to go back to something you said about forced paternity leave, and maybe it's forced, maybe it's just suggested or encouraged.
Mandatory, or maybe.
Right, mandatory. If marriage is a team sport and the man, just this is a scenario, right? Just an example. The man is like, "Hey, honey, you're down and out, right? Body was just, your body was just beaten, had the tar beaten out of it. I'm going to go into the workforce to keep the money coming in." Right. So if we're looking at it that way, why would we say mandatory paternity leave in that scenario?
Because she's still okay, and I see where you're coming from too, but that's why I think if families are gonna be supported, you look at the research on paternity leave, when men are offered paternity leave and they take it, it decreases, maternal, depression rates, right? So it is good for their spouse. It increases their relationship with their child and their bond with their child, and it's good for the relationship. So just a real life anecdote. A friend of mine who works in journalism had 6 weeks maternity leave, and her husband works for a French company. He's based in America, had 6 months. And she said, I had no idea how it would change the dynamic of our family out of the gate because he out of the gate, he was part of raising the child. And again, is it not an inequity to assume that the mother is going to take care of everything out of the gate? Yes, I'm home taking care of the kids, but I'm also all the responsibilities. My body's healing, right? Why is it up to me to raise the child? This should be, again, a team sport, and families are at their best. And I write about it in the book, that like leaders have to walk the walk too. Twitter's former CEO, like we're talking about a couple of, iterations ago, he was applauded for taking some of his paternity leave, and and I actually think you got to take it all because as leaders, your employees are looking up to you. If you don't take it, how can you empower and embolden anyone on your roster to take it? Paternity leave strengthens families. It strengthens the relationship with the child. It strengthens the relationship with your partner. And again, it makes sure that the mother is not the default out of the gate. She's the default for everything. And now she's carrying it out. And guess what happens? We become burnout. Right? And then that puts an extreme strain on the relationship with your partner. And it's just another inequity that we need to call out.
Is this a market issue for the free market to address? And you, in the book, talk about a lot of organizations that are addressing it quite well. Talk about Publix, you talk about Cliff Bar. Or is this a regulation issue? Because there are other gaps, right? There would be the depression gap, people who are dealing with mental health issues. There are the loss of family. There's health. There are soldiers trying to get back in the workforce. On the show, we're talking to April Simpkins. Her daughter, I think it was Miss USA, took her own life. And that, the loss of a child, I've, again, never been in that situation either, but that would also just completely take your focus off your job for a while. So we come in like a country like France and make certain laws, or do we say, look, life is complex and there are a lot of challenges our workforce has to deal with. Let's give the companies the flexibility to deal with all of these gaps.
Well, I think, look, you kind of have to pick your poison. For me, I have decided to focus on advocating for working moms. That doesn't mean that there's not a lot of very real issues that our economy and that our country is dealing with. But the brunt of this, you look at parents comprise 70 to 80% of the workforce. Mothers, there are tens of millions of mothers in the workforce. And the reason, yes, you mentioned soldiers, depression. Mothers are marginalized. Women are marginalized. Women are discriminated against because they have the audacity to want to become a mother. And once they become a mother, they are passed over on promotions, they are scrutinized, and they are paid less. We need to do something about that because that affects every single woman who, my daughter, I don't know if she's going to become a mother, but if she wants to one day, she's going to face the motherhood penalty. We should not be penalized for wanting to have children. We should be celebrated instead of scrutinized. And again, it gets back to if I don't have children, Justin, and not everybody's cut out to have kids, right? My brother's a perpetual bachelor, and that's fine. He's a great uncle. We need chapter 8. I don't know if you've gotten there that far. We need men in the fight. I understand men have grown up with the patriarchy and a lot of mixed messages and toxicity. We need allies in the fight that don't look like us. So thank you for jumping in. It's ridiculous to punish a woman, a mother, for having the audacity to perpetuate the human race. And it is an economic issue because if I don't have children, we don't have a labor force. If you want to grow the economy, the only way, and I've talked to, and this is not in the book, but I talked to a respected economist, Mohammed El-Arian. He's essentially like E.F. Hutton when he in the financial space. When he talks, people listen. He's a step ahead of the Fed. And he said, if we want to grow our economy, we have to support families because you look at the numbers, Justin, and the reality is we're having fewer and fewer kids, not in America, not because we don't want to, because it's so freaking hard to have kids, the stress and strain and the costs of having children. And so now, okay, let's fast forward 20 years. What are we going to look like? We're going to have a diminished labor force. And you look at Asia, China, Singapore, Taiwan, they're now pumping billions of dollars into their economy to reverse those low birth rates, which they mandated for a very long time because they're realizing we can't grow our economy if we don't have a labor market. And the only way you have a labor market is by having families and encouraging people to have children, which we're not doing right now. And it's going to bite us in the butt in about 10 to 20 years when we can't grow our economy because we don't have a labor force.
And so one of the things you talk about, and I want to make sure to get this in here with our last few minutes.
Yes.
One of the things you talk about, and I don't know if you call it this in the book, this is just what I call it, is a results only work environment. And so this really the key, like, hey, leaders, and like you mentioned Johnson and Johnson, how they do a really good job. They're like a mom-friendly workforce, which
Yes.
makes sense because they're trying to market and sell products to a lot of moms. So because life's complex is one of the solutions to tell leaders, hey, focus on objectives with your teams. And if a lot of people are getting the objectives done, that's a day.
Yeah, I think we have to be committed to measuring the measurables. The 9 to 5 workplace just isn't feasible, and it wasn't set up for women, right? It was set up in the 1950s, but
Set up for manufacturing lines where everyone had to be together.
absolutely, absolutely. And you know what? That's fine. Just because it was that way does it for a while doesn't mean that's how it always has to be. You
Right.
measure the measurables, and look, you will not find a more loyal and productive and efficient employee than a parent who has grown in so many core capabilities because of parenthood, not in spite of it. Again, who's grown in empathy and efficiency and vision and leadership and courage. Parenthood, caregiving in general, is a masterclass on leadership. And that's why it's not just, oh, give moms a break. Moms are awesome. You give a mom 10 minutes and she can do just about anything that anybody else can do in several hours. We just get shit done. So measure the measurables, right? Commit to measuring the measurables. And I think that can look like you said, flexible time or what have you. But we have to commit to measuring the measurables. Are you getting the job done? Right. And look, this isn't just impacting mothers and fathers, Justin, because you've seen the research. The strong majority of the entire workforce wants flexible scheduling. If you're committed to measuring the measurables, people getting the job done, that's what matters at the end of the day. And you have to listen to your people. Otherwise, we're going to face companies are going to face a retention or recruiting crisis. And that's the other thing. One of the greatest costs of doing business for so many companies right now, they can't hold on to their employees. You won't find a more loyal, productive, and efficient employee than a mother, father, caregiver when they are well supported. They do not leave if you support them. So that's why I say hire them, and caregivers, mothers, fathers, anybody taking care of someone else. It's the largest workforce sector. It's the fastest growing sector. Right now, it represents 75% of the modern workforce. Take care of the mothers, fathers, and caregivers. And by caregivers, anybody caring for another. That could be you taking care of a sick spouse, anyone. Take care of them on your roster because it's business critical, and you're not going to find a more loyal, productive, efficient employee that won't leave when they are well supported.
I think that's the takeaway is measure the measurable. Paula Faris, the founder of Carry Media, host of the Paula Faris Show, award-winning journalist. Where can people find the podcast and find about you?
Sure. My Instagram is probably the easiest place to find me at Paula Faris. That's Faris, just like Paris with one R. And the show is the Paula Faris Show. And I'm a mom of 3, so I talk about things that parents are talking about, balancing work and life, relationships, real topics, not just parenting, but like what are parents talking about in their home? We're talking about it on the show.
Awesome. Paula, thank you so much for coming on Tomorrowist.
Thank you so much, Justin. It's my pleasure.
Before we say goodbye, I encourage you to subscribe to Tomorrowist wherever you get your podcasts. You can find all our episodes at shrm.org/Tomorrowist, and while you're there, sign up for our weekly newsletter. Thanks for listening, and remember, the workplace is changing rapidly. You don't have time to be a futurist. Be a Tomorrowist.